Where does he go? Oh.
3 plus 3.
So, and then I go x minus 3, x plus 3 when it comes out to b. But when I'm in this stage, and I just have an x squared and a constant is something that doesn't have a variable with him, it's a really simple process. Let's get to the constant, the x squared all by himself. Okay? So how do I get rid of the minus 9? I add it. So this is equivalent to x squared equals 9, correct? Now say to yourself, ladies and gentlemen, what squared ever becomes 9? What squared becomes 9? 3. That is an excellent answer. X does equal 3. Awesome. That would only give you half the points. If that was worth 4, I'd give you 2. Michael, why?
Because there's 2 possibilities.
There is 4 possibilities.
3 to get to
So what technically I'm doing here is I take a square root. How do I get rid of a square root? I take a square root. And the square root of 9 is 3, right? As what we just decided. But because this is x squared equaling this, I am going to go ahead and do plus or minus. Because isn't negative 3 squared also become 9? So there's 2 options, huh? So let me tell you the difference. What is the square root of 9? 3. But when I do x squared equals 9, you see how I'm actually performing the square root? See, when I take the square root, I actually put the square root on the paper. Does that make sense? When you perform the square root, you got to say plus or minus 3. Because the x value could be positive 3 or it could be negative 3. Because it's a variable. We don't know which one it is, correct? So those are the 2 options. If you think about this graph looks like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Our vertex is at 0, 9, and notice, therefore, if it crosses at 3, 0, it has to cross at negative 3, 0 as well, doesn't it? For the fact of the matter that it's symmetrical, correct? And that's a reasoning why this could also work. So just remember, anytime I take a square root, it needs to be plus or minus of that number. Is everybody okay with that?
Then you get full points.
And that would be full points, yeah. That is something that a lot of people forget to do, though. So you got to remember to do plus or minus, okay? That's what this sign is basically about. What if I had 16x squared equals 64? Can I take the square root right now?
No.
Why? Because it's not by itself yet, right? X squared is not by itself. Does that make sense to you? Okay, so I am going to go ahead and it says times by 16. So how do I get rid of a times by 16? Divide it.
4.
Right? Are we okay there?
Plus or minus.
Then, now I have a squared. So how do I get rid of a squared? Square root it. So x equals plus or minus 2. What's the nice thing about doing algebra problems? You could always check your work, couldn't you? By plugging them back in. So I could do the positive 2. 2 squared, 4. 4 times 16 is 64, isn't it? Beautiful. Sorry. Negative 2. Negative 2 squared. 4. 4 times 16 is 64, isn't it? See how I can check my work, right? Everybody there with me? Yeah. All right. Is that too hard?
No.
That's a majority of your homework right there. Okay, let's try another one really quick. What am I going to do on this one? minus the 49 over, correct? How do we get rid of a squared? Square root that. So this would become, what's the square root of 7? I mean 49. 7. But because it's negative, this does become the I, so we have plus or minus 7I.
Wait, why?
No, it's just one combination. These are one number, because the imaginary number 7I is itself, and negative 7I is a different thing. You okay with that, Hogan? So it's just plus or minus 7I. You guys have a question? You okay? Yes?
If the number you're square rooting is negative, you get I.
That's what we learned yesterday, right? Remember, when the square root is negative, that makes it imaginary, correct? And that's what we have. Okay? Now, what if I had 4x squared plus 9 equals 0? I'm telling you, we're 3/4 of the way done with our homework. Almost. It's a really simple day. Maybe you can get it done in class so you don't have it over the weekend. That'd be really nice with it. So what are we going to do first? Go ahead, Ethan. I do order about when I solve things, when I solve an equation like this, would I divide 3 before I add the 2 over? That's usually not what we do. Remember, when solving, it's kind of like order of operations backwards, right? So we start with the adding and subtracting over to the other side first, right? So then we're at 4x squared equals 9, correct?
Negative.
Thank you, negative 9. Thank you, Michael.
Divide by 4.
Hunter, you okay with that so far? And then as Micaiah says here, we're going to go ahead and divide by 4. How do we take a square root of a fraction? Does anybody know? We just do the top and the bottom. Just take the square root of the top and the square root of the bottom. That's all you're going to do. Okay? So, this is the same thing as x equaling, once again, because we took the square root, what do we have to put down? We physically put the square root on the paper, right? So that is a plus or minus. So, nope, what's the square root of negative 9? 3i. What's the square root of 4?
2.
Not 2i,
Yeah.
just 2, right? Just take the square root of the top and the bottom.
Awesome.
Am I killing anyone? Are you being serious? Okay. Now, we're going to have something that's kind of like already a binomial. Maybe something that looks like this. Okay, once again, as I just explained, it's order of operations in reverse. Right? When you're solving, basically, correct?
So subtract
So we subtract the 9 over. So now I'm at x plus 3 squared equals what?
14. Right? Oh,
60.
60.
never mind.
You guys should have went with her costume. She's a fox. Aren't you a fox?
I'm a deer.
Oh,
You
Oh.
can tell we look like the one.
I thought really close to a fox.
Me too.
I really thought so.
We need all ballroom team members to meet at the front of the school right now.
Is anybody a ballroom team member? Okay.
No.
All right.
No, 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 yeah.
Huh?
There's a lot.
No. Just
Let's get your homework really quick.
okay.
I remember you
He's
being
doing like you guys and like three solos.
You're basically almost done.
Subtract the difference.
I
Subtract.
think that's like at the end.
My computer died on me. Like, hey.
Distribute.
Huh? Uh-huh. It was in Vegas, and we were walking by, and then this guy down the street, he had a cooler full of water. He's like, I'm homeless, at least I'm trying to sell stuff. And I'm like, his sign was clever. Make it better sign. Anyway, oh, yeah. Yeah, he actually yelled at me.
Really?
Uh-huh. One time I was in San Francisco, and a guy, all of a sudden, they like, oh, this has been... Is X by itself yet?
No.
No, so what do we do now? How do we get, because now this is inside the parentheses, so do we do inside parentheses stuff first or square roots first when we're going backwards?
Square root.
We do the square root to get rid of it first, right? Because we're getting rid of the exponent.
So we just do it.
So we take the square root, because that's what gets rid of a square, doesn't it? So now we're left with x plus 3 equals plus or minus 4. Is x
No.
by itself?
Then you subtract 3.
So then we're going to subtract the 3. So x equals negative 3 plus or minus 4. Is that my answer? What does that even mean? This is probably the first time you guys have ever seen this, correct? They're not exponents.
Those are your,
All you say is x equals negative 3 plus 4, which is 1, and negative 3 minus 4, which is negative 7. See the plus or minus? All it's saying you need to do is go negative 1 plus that 4, and negative 1 minus the 4.
Oh, and then you have the 2.
Then we have two answers, because usually, on a quadratic, how many times usually could it cross? Twice, right? Well, down here I don't, because I've already did the plus or minus action. So notice, once again, what's nice about algebra, I can check, can't I? What's 1 plus 3? 4. 4 squared. 16 plus 9. It checks, doesn't it? Negative 7. Negative 7 plus 3. Negative 4. Negative 4 squared. 16 plus 9 is, there are two answers that make that work. Yes, sir.
so which one stands?
Both. You have to have both. Just like 2 days assignments ago, remember how we had two answers? Same kind of idea. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. Okay.
So which one's the answer down there?
Both. Sorry, you're okay.
Well, yeah, I meant the one above it also.
No, this is not the answer. This got me to here. Because Hogan, negative 3 plus 4 is 1. Negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. Does that make sense to you? Say what? Yes, you can simplify from that. Yes. Should we try another one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we like do problems where like you tell people to go up on the board and finish them?
Oh. How about I say everybody try this on their own? Bless you. You're doing tiny. Hiccupy. Burpy hiccupy. Yeah. Okay, so I added the 16 over because once again, addition and subtraction is the first thing I got to do when I'm solving, huh?
Yeah.
What's the next thing I need to do?
Divide by 4.
I need to divide by the 4 next.
That's so easy.
Does that make
Why
sense?
didn't I think of that? So the next x minus 5.
Then how do I get rid of a squared?
Square root.
And when I physically take the square root, what do I need to do? Plus or minus. I'm trying to pound that in your head, right?
Yeah.
When you physically take the square root, you need to do plus or minus. And a squared, so this is x minus 5 equals this.
Add 5.
And we add the 5.
Plus or minus.
Okay? So we're here. Now I still have tons of my kids still leave it like this. this is not our answer.
Hold on.
Because we can simplify. So I say 5 plus 2, 7. 5 minus 2, and those are my answers. Okay? Anybody have a question? On your homework, you're going to be doing the area of a square, not a square, area of a circle. Does anybody know what the area of a circle is?
Pi r squared.
A equals pi r squared. You might want to have that in your notes so you can do your homework problem today. Now, for those that are going to use a calculator to solve this one, I do not want you ever to use 3.14. That is not what pi is. That's an estimate of pi. Even the button on our calculator is an estimate. But your calculator usually has a pi button. In this case, it's right here. Okay, you would hit the second caret button. And there's pi. Okay, it should be there somewhere on your calculator. I don't know about your phones because I don't care about phones. Those are phones and not calculators. Okay, anybody have a question? Remember when you... those problems really quick. Last one. If I had, I'm even going to make it simple, x minus 2 squared equals negative 4. Okay, so we take the square root, correct? So this would be x minus 2 equals plus or minus 2i. Then what do? I add the 2. That is simplified. Because I cannot add real numbers to imaginary numbers, can I? Does that make sense? So it would be 2 plus 2i, 2 minus 2i, so we just leave it 2 plus 2i. 2 plus or minus 2i. Okay? Okay, that's it.